What's going on, my beautiful people? Today we're going to discuss the infantry problem, and we have a special guest, 68 bus driver. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, man, I've been following your channel for a while. I also covered his channel in a video a few months ago, I guess, if you guys haven't watched that. And his channel link will be in the description. Definitely go check him out. Today I want to ask you, when I say infantry problem, it is this. So right now we have Liu Che, who is amazing, and William Wallace will clearly be amazing for field fighting. By the way, this video is going to be all about field fighting because 90% of players, they care about field fighting. We don't rally, we don't garrison because we are low spenders, free to play. Even mid spenders in tougher regions or tougher kingdoms, they don't rally or garrison, they do field fighting. Infantry has amazing commanders, obviously, but the problem is, if you are, let's say, transitioning from earlier KVKs to Season of Conquest, we obviously invest on Liu Che, we will obviously invest on William Wallace. However, CPO is an amazing commander by himself, but if we invest on CPO, who we are going to pair him with, or is it worth investing backwards to like Guan Yu or Alexander the Great or whatever, just to be able to play with CPO, or is it better to just wait for the next pair of infantries?
I think a couple of the videos I made, I like to give an analogy. So first, I always ask people if they've ever been on a lazy river, right? So if you've ever been on a lazy river, it's like it goes in a circle, right? It could be different shapes, but it's essentially in a circle, and there's a stream that kind of pushes it downstream. And if you've ever been in one, if you try to swim against the current, it's a lot of work to go up the current. But if you kind of jump in and just float down, you can literally just lay there in the tube and it will just kind of carry you and keep going around. So for me, I like to give that analogy for commanders because there's amazing commanders, right? But for players, especially when they're newer players that just get access in KVK3, a lot of times mistake is, okay, there's this amazing commander, right? But maybe they're a year old, right? Or maybe, for example, like Herman's really good, right? But I'm actually telling people right now, if they have, say, ZL or Herman, uh, maybe don't invest in the other one, and it's okay to maybe just run Ethel or something. Because if you're newer to season of KVK through season of Conquest, by the time you get your Herman or ZL Max, the new Archer is going to be out, right? And now it could be just mid Archer, right? And you made the right call, but if you finally max your Herman, and then now this new Archer commander is better, and you just you have ZL Herman or something, right? Like, what do you do? So a lot of times the trap is, okay, this commander is really good. Let me just jump in now. But actually, kind of knowing where you are within this cycle, right? Infantry, then archer, then whatever the order is, like knowing that is really important. And also knowing like how many commanders you have, like, right? Like if you have two good infantry commanders, if you invest in a third one, well, one of them is going to not have a partner, right? Or one of them is not going to have a like a natural partner to pair it with. So sometimes so sometimes it's actually a lot of it is thinking with the future in mind. If I invest in this commander, right, well, that kind of set me up for the future. And I think the best example for this is right now, a lot of people when they get into KVK3, to be able to have a end game March in KVK3, you're almost forced to invest in caps,
Yeah.
right? But like so, because if you go infantry, by the time you get the wheel, it's a few days before Kingsland Open. KVK3 is just a lot of ruins and altar fights up until that point, right? So a lot of people go into calves, but they're going into calves at the expense of potentially, say, getting Herman or ZL or especially Liu Che, and they might do well in a few ruins, but it actually is setting their account back, right? So if you're specifically talking about infantry, right, and you already have Scipio and Liu Che, do you invest in William Wallace? That's the question, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So, in my opinion, it depends on your level of spend and activity because that dictates how many gold heads you get, right? If you are actually accumulating gold heads, you can max the wheel or you can actually accumulate it at a higher rate. Um, then I would actually recommend you go for William Wallace because I do think the William Wallace Liu Che March, once that's officially in the game and people are testing it in the open field, not in dueling, they're going to notice that whatever they think they're getting from, say, like Lucha Alex or Gorgo Lucha, right? Like it's going to be that, but with march speed and better for the open field. It, in my opinion, will clearly be the best march in the game, right? And
I
for
agree. Yeah, I
people,
think
like
so.
the
Yeah.
analogy I give to for like smite damage, people are just like, oh, 2250 damage factor, Luchette, right? Well, that's like, oh, I played in the local YMCA basketball league versus the Chinese basketball league versus the NBA, and I average 20 points per game, right? Like it's 20 points per game, but the nature, like how what it's actually doing is very different. Smite damage is very different from skill damage because there's a lot of ways to mitigate skill damage right now. There's not a lot of ways to mitigate smite damage. And then when you're a smite damage commander, right? When you say get a normal damage attack boost, your basic attacks going up, your counter attacks going up, and your active skill is going up, right? So in a roundabout way, when you're a smite damage commander, uh, your attack is more valuable than if you're a skill damage commander. And it's not just the active skill that's getting a boost. Like the if you look at say like YSG, right? He has like a 50% skill damage boost. That's not increasing the white damage. But for smite commanders, like your white damage is also pumping out more damage. So because of all of that, and I love like Scipio is a top. I think he's the. If you gave me like the option right now, I would say it's Luce, and then Herman, and then Scipio. If you just look at their kit alone as a standalone commander, I would put it in that order. Yeah, right. So like he's a top three commander, and I'm actually saying William Wallace is worse as a commander, but because of the synergy, and because you have the potential to go to with the best march in the game, and sometimes you just drop down to one march, whether it's cheeseburgering, you're out of resources, like whatever, right? Like it's for me, I would say for most people, I think it's worth it to go there. And then what's really cool with a lot of the new KVK formats now is you can actually convert the secondary commander to another troop type,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So uh, he could be used later on, and because Scipio is so good, right? When the next infantry, now this is projecting like 11 months ahead, when the next infantry cycle comes around again, you'll be able to pair it with Scipio, right? And honestly, I'm kind of sad with William Wallace because I was really hoping to get a commander that obviously replaced Guan, so I could actually
Yeah, yeah,
keep
yeah.
Lucio with Alex, right? And then you have like a essentially, what if you get like an upgraded Guan, like a better skill damage infantry commander that can also silence and do more? That would have been like a really really fun pairing, right? But then I think infantry also would have been too broken, so they almost released it in this way where they're making you choose like, okay, the Lucia March is still going to be really good, but then whatever is left over with Scipio is just going to clearly be um, a tier behind,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. I
having
mean,
said, yeah,
sorry to interrupt, but I also think that CPO is definitely like by itself compared to 1v1, I think he's better than William Wallace. However,
yeah,
when you are evaluating commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, you also need to think about possible pairings and which pairing is better rather than which commander is better. And here's a question that I want to ask you. Let's say you have one march, right? It is Liu Che and
mhm.
Scipio, and then William Wallace here, and you invested on William Wallace. Do you just maybe pair your Scipio with Ethelflaed or maybe bench him, or do you love invest on Alex? What do we do?
I would not invest in Alex Rook One. So I would actually, um, if it was okay, if it was just me personally, I had one March right now, right? I'm just running Lucia Scipio, and it's awesome. It does well. It like just always trades positive, all that stuff. And then William Wallace comes out. Your choice is okay. I skip William Wallace and I go into say like cavalry or archer, right? Where I
Hmm.
invest in William Wallace. So if I decide to skip, okay, let's just say I skip him. I decide I want to go into archer. Well, I still need to actually max two archer commanders,
Yeah, you
right?
still need to
Like I'll
spend
still need
those
to do two.
sculptures.
Yeah. So if I skip, like just one's not going to work. I'll still need to do two, right? But if I go William Wallace, okay, I do have a max Scipio that I could actually run with someone else. But if you invest in someone else, like Guan or Alex, right? Or I mean, I don't think anyone's even suggesting like Sargon, Tariq. Like there's essentially a bunch of options. There's clearly like some that I think are better than others, but they're all up in about the same range. Uh, I wouldn't actually invest in any of those commanders because kind of that lazy river analogy. Maybe you focus a little bit more on one march, and then later when you get ahead and you kind of catch up, eventually it'll come around again and you could use it, right? But I wouldn't in fact invest in Alex and Guan just because you're essentially investing in a commander to pair with your second commander, and then like by themselves, like they're not really good enough to survive the next cycle. Like they're not going to survive. It's less likely just because Scipio's kit is so complete. Like he literally has everything.
Yeah, basically
Right. The
everything.
only
Yeah.
thing the only thing he's a little low on, which wasn't really the case 2 years ago, it's more and more important now, is a way to increase skill damage or a way to increase smite damage. Right. That's why that Gohan Scipio pairing was so good 2 years ago. It just seems like it's not putting out enough damage because you look at what it's competing with. All those other pairs have a way to massively increase skill damage or smite damage. Whereas if you do Guan Scipio, right, if they target silence, maybe you'll. Oh no, if the Scipio Guan pair has a shield, you get a conditional 15%, and then you just get 10% from Scipio. That's it. Like so, even if you're lucky, you get 25%.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the
Whereas
best
like
case
you take,
scenario. Yeah.
yeah, right. You take like Nevsky Joan, right? That's guaranteed. Like Joan gets a 60% every time, and then Nevsky gets what, like 25. The Herman ZL one is just 40%, 20% each from each. So that in my opinion is the biggest reason why the Guan Scipio March feels like it's falling behind. And it wasn't a thing 2 years ago, right? Like, but now every one of these commanders is doing that, and then the amount of damage it's pumping out kind of took it to a whole different level, right? The active skill isn't necessarily jumping up that much higher, but if you want to run Guan Skip, 10% skill damage, sometimes you get 15 and you're lucky and it triggers at the time when you're launching your active skill. That's why in my opinion, I feel like it feels like it's falling apart. Or else if you look at the rest of that kit, the rest of the kit actually all looks pretty good. And that's the only reason to me why it isn't keeping up with the top end marches now.
I see. So basically, what we need to do if you are transitioning from KVK3 to Season of Conquest, when you invest on an infantry march, you don't invest on CPO right now, even though he's still a great commander. Most likely, our one single best infantry pair is going to be Liu Che and William Wallace. And if you already invested on CPO, do not invest back to Guan or Alex just to be able to use CPO on the field, right? That is, I guess, the final
because
conclusion.
like it's something where like it's almost guaranteed that commander's shelf life is going to be a lot lower. If you look at the best cav infantry archer march right now, cav is the weakest, right? But the cavs are very, very deep. So I would say the second cav pair is probably a little bit better than the second best infantry pair and archer pair.
Yeah, I agree,
So
definitely. Yeah.
right, but like Nevsky Joan is one, it's old, but and it's not even so much that it's old. Like I run the reports manager. I look at it. You kind of look at actually some of the debuffs as it's hard to measure in a report. I just think which one would you rather have for like group debuff? Like I would rather have ZL Herman right over Neb Joan, and that March is just putting out more damage, right? Double AOE. It is. So it's the third one. I would rather go take a shot with what I think would be clearly the best March. Now, if William Wallace comes out and it's like a big flop, right? Like people are running the open fields, like, no, it's pretty much just like Luce Alex or something. I would completely change what I'm saying. But it just like kind of knowing what I know about smite damage and like having done the math and like really, really trying to figure out why is it that Lucia seems to be able to pair with anything and like it just does so well, right? And then you started figuring out, okay, we see smite damage, but I don't think people are really appreciating smite damage when it's actually hitting a target because they don't really have any defense against it, right? Like the actual damage that the target is taking is way higher than a comparable skill damage. It's not necessarily even that smite damage is that much better, even though I think one thing that's very underrated is because it's increasing normal damage to benefit smite damage. The white damage for the commander also is increasing, right? Whereas when you get a skill damage increase, that's only increasing the active skill, not the white damage.
Yeah, it's just the
So
active skill.
yeah, so like Luce, like with his like extra basic attack and all the normal damage increase, like it's okay, well, he doesn't have a lot of stats, right? Because I actually heard people complain about Luce when he first came out. It's like, well, he doesn't offer enough stats. Well, the whole reason for more attack is so you do more damage, right? But he's actually getting a normal damage increase, which is actually what attack is doing. Except his talents is just straight up increasing normal damage. Like it's acting like a stat, right? If you have talents that mitigate damage, it's acting like health and defense. You don't actually have to have health and defense. You just need a way to mitigate damage. But we want to make it like just very, very simple, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
think most people should invest in William Wallace, even if you already have Scipio. I think the only time where you shouldn't invest in William Wallace is if your Luce isn't done for some reason. Because what's making that march really good is one, smite damage, and then two, like Luce. And the reason why we want William Wallace is because he is the best smite damage pairing for Luce. But as a standalone commander, I would take Scipio over him. Like he's okay, but he's not like that special.
I would love to chat with you more because I really respect your detailed analysis when it comes to Rise of Kingdoms and the effort that you put in. I can clearly see it on your videos and everything. But I think I just heard the door,
Appreciate it, man.
so
Yeah,
I think baby and wife
yeah,
is here, so we had to cut it short.
yeah,
But thank you so
yeah.
much for
Just
all the insight. Yeah, of course, go ahead.
appreciate it. Just gotta say, as a young player, I watch your videos probably more than even like Chisgle's videos,
Oh,
especially
thank you.
your equipment ones. So it's kind of surreal, getting to actually chat and record a video. So
Yeah,
appreciate it.
exactly. Yeah, back in the day, I was so obsessed with the equipment and optimizing it. Guys, thank you
No,
so
those
much
are
for
good. Those are
watching.
good videos. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, the channel
Yeah.
link of Bus Driver will be in the description. By the way, his name is Bus Driver, but I think he owns a gym, so I don't know about that. But the channel link
Yeah.
will be in the description. You will find a lot of super useful long-form videos about Rise of Kingdoms, commanders, equipment, armaments, whatever. Make sure to check it out. Just watch one video and you will hit subscribe. I'm not going to even tell you to subscribe because you'll do it anyways. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next time. Goodbye.
All right, man.